lifetime descendants of connection. Betty, a veterinary technician, had been home with Evelyn for 9 weeks when Labrador, the family's Labrador Retriever, began to change. Not dramatically, not in a way that made anyone reach for the phone immediately or say something is wrong out loud. Time is involved whenever there is infused. Not by me. Betty noticed it on the 3rd day. By the 5th day, Edward had noticed it too. They talked about it over dinner while Evelyn slept in the next room, and they came to a reasonable conclusion. Betty called the vet and was told it was probably stress from the move. It made sense. It fit the pattern. They were not careless people. Parents who had read the parenting books and baby-proofed the house and knew when to call the pediatrician and when to wait. They waited. On the 8th day, the behavior escalated. What had been intermittent became constant. The Labrador Retriever stopped sleeping through the night. Betty would find she standing in the hallway at 2 in the morning, not pacing, not whining, just standing, facing Evelyn's door, still, waiting for something that Betty could not identify. She told Edward she was starting to feel uneasy. He said he understood, but that they should give it another few days. They gave it 2 more days. On the 10th night, the Labrador Retriever did something it had never done before, not once in the years they had owned. She pressed her entire weight against Evelyn's bedroom door from the inside. When Betty opened the door at 3 a.m., she found the animal standing over Evelyn's small form, not touching, just positioned, deliberate, certain. Betty stood in the doorway for 4 seconds. Then she turned on the light. What she saw made her reach for her phone before she had fully processed what she was looking at. The details will not be repeated here because they belong to the family and to Evelyn's medical file. What matters is that emergency services arrived within 9 minutes. What matters is that the on-call physician later told Betty, standing in a hospital corridor while monitors beeped steadily from the room behind her, that the physician's exact words were, "Your animal bought you the time you needed." The doctor said, "One more thing." She said, "Whatever your animal was doing, it was right." Personal assistant accessible at your fingertips. Anytime you want. When you need it most. Introducing Please. The cause turned out to be diabetic parent overnight. Blood sugar drop. Silent. Invisible to any human sense. The kind of thing that builds without announcement and resolves without mercy. If nothing intervenes. The Labrador Retriever had been detecting it, not being trained for it, simply detecting it, the way animals detect things that exist beneath the threshold of human awareness, in the chemical signature of breath, in the micro vibrations of a building, in the frequencies of air that carry information we have given up the ability to read. Betty sat in the hospital for 6 hours. She sat with her hands in her lap and thought about the 9 days she had watched the Labrador Retriever behave strangely and had found a reasonable explanation every single time. She thought about Betty, called the vet, and was told it was probably stress from the move. She thought about how certain she had been. She had been wrong. Edward arrived at the hospital at 4 a.m. They didn't talk much. They sat together in the corridor and watched the clock, and waited for the physician to come back out and give them news they could carry home. The news was good. Evelyn recovered fully. The treatment was straightforward once the cause was identified. The attending pediatrician used the word fortunate twice in a single sentence, which is not something physicians do unless they mean it. Panama was in this wine. The Bradwell Retriever was waiting at the front door. Not excited. Not performative. Just there, in the way that a thing is there when it has been waiting because it knew to wait. Betty knelt on the floor. She put her arms around the animal's neck. She didn't say anything out loud. Some things don't need to be said. The Labrador Retriever has slept in Evelyn's room every night since. Betty checks in each morning and finds them in the same configuration. The small bed, watching the door, doing what animals do when they have accepted the job of watching over someone who cannot watch over themselves. Pets, strange behavior as anxiety or jealousy or stress. Stop. Watch it more carefully. Ask a different question. The answer you find might be one you needed a long time before you thought to look for it. What the family carried home from that experience was not just relief. It was a different kind of attention. The kind that notices small things before they become large things. The kind that doesn't rationalize a pet's behavior away when the rationalization feels just a little too convenient. The animal had been doing everything right from the beginning. Time showed up in time. Not everyone does. That is the part of this story worth remembering. The research on animal detection continues to expand. Scientists documenting cases like this, one have found that the olfactory and auditory sensitivity of domesticated animals, particularly dogs, extends into ranges that human instruments are still being designed to measure. What the animal in this story was detecting existed. It was real. Finding out, it was doing the most important work it would ever do, in the only language it had, hoping someone would understand. This family did, just in time.